Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. Make sure to share our episodes out, and if you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the very wide, wacky, creative world of animation. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And boy, we have a very exciting show for you tonight. Our feature reviews are for Inside Out and Ultraman Rising. And we'll also talk about Daffy and Wacky Land, the first Looney Tunes stop motion short. But before we get there, we have a little bit of news to cover from this year's Annecy Film Festival. So, Cameron, what's going on in the wonderful world of animation?
Well, a lot. It came roaring back after we had our episode where we talked about like Garfield, Film of the Unicorn, and My Oni Girl. Well, we were like, it's not in a great spot, and this news doesn't alleviate the many problems that the animation industry still has right now. But it's like a very good band-aid. Great stuff happening. Still need to not let up on the fact that we need to get this stuff out of here. Like, out there, we need people, these animators, to get work and be paid and treated fairly and not replaced by all those stupid AI garbage videos that popped up on my Twitter feed.
I've been seeing way too many of those lately.
They look awful, and those people are so blissfully, stupidly proud of those, and I just don't get it. There was even that one story about an indie filmmaker who had one of their shorts show up at the Tribeca Film Festival made with that stupid Sora AI thing, and apparently thought dying on a hill for AI was a good idea, and then they deleted all their social medias and such because they just couldn't let go of the fact that what they did was not great, even though previously they were like very much against AI. So I guess the AI folks paid them a lot of money to lose their dignity. So anyway, at the Annecy Film Festival, the big takeaway victors of the festival lineup were Adam Elliott's newest stop-motion feature, Memoir of a Snail, which won the main award there and will be distributed by IFC later this year. And then we have the new film by Gintz Zilbalotis, Flow, which is the follow-up to his 2019 film, Away, which it got a lot of love on the festival circuit, but then I think it was like self-distributed, so once it hit the public, nobody cared, or it didn't pick up as much traction as you would hope. Which, I mean, that's the problem when you don't have a distributor to back you in. I want creatives to be able to keep their films, but sometimes you need that help to get your film out there. And unfortunately, sometimes even if you do pick up a distributor, they have no idea how to release your movie. R.I.P. the inventor and little Nicholas, happy as can be, which it's a shame. But hopefully Flow will, flow better with the public conscious when it gets released. I think Janus Films, who are a part of the Criterion folks. So,
oh, that's good.
Maybe they'll get a better shot. But another major award winner was Toto-chan, the little girl at the window, which got glowing reviews of a film that looks amazing, but it also has a dark and adult subject matter. And Naoko Yamada got a lot of love from there also with The Colors Within. While it didn't win anything, sadly, she got a standing ovation even before the movie started. And I know a lot of people make fun of the half-hour standing ovations at stuff like the Cannes Film Festival, But if so many people were this excited for a new Naoko Yamada film, you know she has left an impact in the world of animation. And this is on top of just all the news from what Warner Brothers is doing with greenlighting so many new adult animated series, a new season of Gumball, a new Adventure Time movie, a preschool spinoff, another season of Fiona and Cake, which we'll have to talk about sometime again later, some new animated features, Creature Commandos. We saw a preview of first fully 2D non compilation film or live action hybrid Looney Tunes film, The Day the Earth Blew Up, which at least it's away from Warner Brothers' hands, so people can actually freaking watch this. We still got a hashtag save Coyote versus Acme, though. But we also got more info on stuff like Creature Commandos, Genndy Tartakovsky's making a new comedy heist series, and of course, the work in progress stuff showed a lot of amazing works by like Kenji Iwasawa, who's teaming up with Keisuke Kojima, who helped with Frieren Beyond Journey's End, with Hyakuemu. Kenji Iwasawa was the same person behind Ongaku Our Sound from 2020. Then, of course, there's like the new film from the creatives behind Odd Taxi and such. So a lot of cool stuff. A lot of the films look great. I hope they all get some kind of US release, digital or not, because I don't want to have to sail the seven seas to watch some of these movies. They looked fantastic. And a lot of these projects look great. And we also got a little preview look of the new Lord of the Rings film, The War of Rohirrim. And, well, it's like the first Lord of the Rings anime project. And it looks great. I mean, the preview images look great, even though I saw some people snark that it's like, this is what someone put in an AI prompt of make Lord of the Rings but anime. And it's just like, y'all, you got to stop with that insult. You know how crappy AI nonsense looks. This is actual anime made by actual artists and creatives, not some lazy asshole who put in a prompt into us an art stealing algorithmic AI machine.
I think people are just becoming way too cynical as kind of an overcorrection to all of the garbage that's happening in the entertainment industry.
It's also because I'm going to assume that a lot of people feel bad because they played around with AI stuff before it became like an actual real issue people started taking seriously. Yeah, I'm sure all of us have played around with a prompt or two just to be like, oh, that's freaking ugly as hell, but that's kind of funny. And then it's like, oh, investors and studio heads are really wanting this now because instead of not greenlighting Kraven the Hunter or a Madam Web movie, they're thinking we need to use AI to cut costs when that's just going to make things worse, y'all.
So much worse.
Like, stop greenlighting stuff nobody wants. And I know people are going to be like, well, somebody wanted this movie. And it's just like, listen, I understand every film is going to have their audience, but there are absolutely movies out there that are announced, released, or in production where nobody really asked for them. You got to stop with the tiptoeing around that thing that Hollywood execs will, a lot of the time, most of the time, greenlight mostly terrible ideas that nobody was asking for. And to hear about how some of them are apparently leaning really heavily on the algorithm to make the notes the actual people making the stuff, it's depressing, which is why on top of all this amazing news and a wonderful new stuff getting made, we still have to keep fighting.
You gotta just stay vigilant.
Because if we don't keep fighting, we won't get stuff like Daffy Duck in Wacky Land, the official first stop-motion short from the Looney Tunes franchise, which, fun fact, I could have seen last year at Animationist Film on the big screen, and I'm sure it would have looked mind-blowingly amazing on there. But it was also playing around the same time as The Boy and the Heron when it was premiering there, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to skip over a Hayao Miyazaki movie. However, with all that said, this was a wild short.
Oh my God. This thing is incredible. Before I watched this, I went back and watched the other two Wacky Land shorts, the original from 1938, Porky and Wacky Land, which is just a masterpiece by Bob Clampett. Just one of the most insane things he's ever done. Friz Freleng tried to capture that same magic with 1949's Doe for the Dodo. It wasn't quite the same. And then this, Daffy and Wacky Land, which is kind of shocking that this is the first time that we've gotten a stop motion Looney Tune cartoon. But I think Max Winston knocked this one right out of the park.
If you're going to get a Looney Tune short made in stop motion, they went bug wild with this one short. Like, they went above and beyond. This thing looked like it cost a pretty penny to craft. It's like it's got all these vibrant assets and details thrown in at every single moment. And the animation looks amazing. I don't know if it's like full on plasticine or if it's more like the 3D printed stuff that Leica does. It looks wonderful. And it moves and has like a vibe of how Rankin Bass stuff would look at times. It's in how they move.
Yeah, I was really impressed with like the speed and the timing of all the physical gags. Like that one like fish creature that kept like changing its shape every couple times. The creativity in this short is just wild.
Seeing that whole sequence where Daffy runs up the tree to get the dodo egg, like I remember there was a behind the scenes video on Twitter about it, and this is why we don't have more stop motion stuff, because it's a time consuming, very expensive thing to do. But man, just throw all the money at that kind of stuff, because we need more stop motion, man. It brings its own flavor of vibrant animation to the animation scene that you can't get with CGI or 2D animation. Like, even with CGI animation that mimics stop motion, there's still something there that's missing in its imitation, even if it's still quite wonderful.
It's like they go 90% there in terms of like imitating stop motion, but nothing can truly replace the real thing.
It might not be the funniest Looney Tunes short out of the bunch. It's more reliant on its zany, vibrant, drug-fueled visuals, and to be like an experience over it being full of like joke after joke after joke, like how some of those Looney Tunes shorts from this new iteration of the series are. I don't mind that, because the jokes that are there are still very funny. The snake gag it's so old school Looney Tunes.
Mm-hmm.
How it was about to eat Daffy, and then it kisses Daffy, and then just flips out and vanishes from the world and just says, "Call me," and then just is gone. And then at the very end, when the dodo is just like, "Listen, if you want an egg, I'll just lay you an egg," which, don't think too hard about that, because otherwise that's a horrifying thing to think about. And then it with the punchline at the end with there being a tiny Daffy inside the egg.
That punchline was killer.
Because I was thinking it was going to stop there, but of course it's Daffy Duck and Wacky Land. Daffy's going to freaking eat the tiny version of himself. And the fact that they were willing to go so different with the model sheets for both the Dodo and Daffy, and you end up with like a lot of different looks for Daffy Duck. And it's just great. It takes advantage of the cartoony nature of 2D animation, but brings it to life in a 3D way that's not through CGI technology and such.
Aesthetically, this kind of reminds me of the early Nickelodeon bumpers, how just kind of crazy those things could get.
I perfectly understand. And then there are the times where Aardman used to make bumpers for Nickelodeon. It's just a really cool, really out there visual aesthetic that I think pulls it off perfectly. And it's a really good short. I hope this is not the cap to end all of this because I've loved these Looney Tunes shorts that have come out that have imitated and also perfected the very old school way of doing Looney Tunes. I love the Chuck Jones era, and I know that's a lot of people's favorites. I mean, I get it. Chuck Jones is a master, but I really love how it goes for the more surreal old school stuff instead of trying to imitate the later stuff.
As much as I love the Chuck Jones stuff, my favorites were like the Bob Clampett and Tex Avery shorts. Those just went in wild, wild directions.
Man, you see the stuff that Tex Avery made after leaving Looney Tunes? It's amazing.
I think he did some of his best stuff after leaving Warner Brothers.
Daffy Duck and Wacky Land is such a testament of animation and a really good starting point for this episode because we're about to go into two other films that just have amazing animation and bountiful amounts of creativity. Let's get started with Pixar's, I guess you could say, big return to making, well, movies that do well again, which, again, it was really weird that Pete Docter had to walk back that oddly made interview where it was just like, yeah, the last few didn't do anything. They lost us money. And it's just, we were mad about that because we were all like, they didn't get a chance to go to theaters. And when you re-release them, it was like, who cares? Like, unless you were like one of those hardened animation fans who waited hoping for a theatrical re-release of Soul, Turning Red, and Luca. And then nobody showed up to them. So for those three to get the weird, like, target on their back to be the scapegoats of just Disney's maybe spending way too much money.
Yeah.
All eyes were on Inside Out 2 and to see where it would go. And to see, well, if this was a success, will that mean Pixar will still do original movies? Or are they really going to double down on sequels because that's what Disney's going to pay attention to instead of, heavens forbid, good writing and universal storytelling from the perspective of the directors and such. I'm still bugged over that one line of him saying something like, oh, films like Turning Red, Luca, and Soul were not universal. And it's just like, their themes were universal, man. You don't have to be exactly those characters. You don't have to be a fish man to understand friendship and discrimination.
Exactly.
Or a little girl who turns into a red panda to understand the stress and panic of going through puberty and the drama that you could unpack with mother-daughter issues and all that stuff. So it was just a weird thing, and I know he walked it back, saying like, yeah, we didn't technically say that. And then, of course, Pete Docter was not the director of Inside Out 2. We have, in their directorial debut, Kelsey Mann, where we follow Riley as she is now a teenager who goes to a hockey camp, and it just so happens during her time there, she gets new emotions, which include anxiety, voiced by Maya Hawke, envy, voiced by Ayo Edebiri, embarrassment, voiced by Paul Walter Hauser, and ennui, voiced by Adele Exarchopoulos. And this is also, of course, the returning emotions of joy, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear have to now deal with this, and hijinks ensue. I was very curious to see where I would land on this movie. On one hand, I was like, Pete Docter's not there. How good is this going to be? A lot of the Disney Pixar stuff, or at the very least on the Disney animation side of things, hasn't really been hitting. Their 2023, of course, was a disaster.
Yeah, to put it lightly.
Even though their one bright spot with Elemental was still not enough to save them. And then, of course, there's some outside the production things that people were going to be bugged about, with the fact that Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader were not going to return as Disgust and Fear. They were instead getting replaced by Liza Lapira and Tony Hale, playing Disgust and Fear, like, respectively. You know, there was just a lot of worry. It's like, is this going to be like one of those great Pixar sequels that builds upon the world of the original film, or is this going to be like the Cars 2, where it fumbles the ball and doesn't quite make the winning goal and such? But considering a lot of people have friggin' seen it and the reviews have been glowing, a lot of people are very much on board with this movie.
And Mike, I am one of them.
Yeah, same here. I think what helps is the fact that, one, they age Riley up, and two, while this movie does suffer from some sequelitis decisions in terms of the story setup, they have an entirely different way and story that is a good companion piece to the original Inside Out, where the original Inside Out was more about, you can't be perpetually happy. You have to let the other emotions out, because it's not healthy just to be one type of emotion. Express yourself. It's okay to express yourself. It's okay to be sad, angry, disgusted, afraid. And this is why so many people would not be the worst out there if they weren't in an environment that said, no, you gotta keep your feelings behind a bank vault and such. You can't let them out. With here, the main driving force in a big thematic journey for Riley and the emotions inside her are all, who is Riley as a teenager? Who is she as a person? And there are definitely some parts where they retread through familiar ground, like Joy takes control of what memories are considered important memories, but not in a sense of just constantly happy memories, but more the embarrassing ones, the ones that are unpleasant. And then when we are introduced to Anxiety, who's voiced wonderfully by Maya Hawke, Anxiety does the thing that Anxiety does, where you worry about the future and things that may not even happen, but to you, they are going to happen. And just like, what happens when you let anxiety take over and it becomes the one emotion, and how that anxiety, without balance of the other emotions, can lead you down a very destructive path.
I'm hesitant to call Anxiety a villain. I think that kind of flattens her arc in the story, but I think she is the perfect foil for the core five.
Anxiety is like Joy in a lot of ways. Not a villain in a straightforward sense. They are more of an indirect antagonistic force because of how Anxiety takes over and thinks, okay, I need to control every little bit of this without the other emotions getting in the way.
Kind of like Joy and Anxiety, and Kelsey Mann has described this in a lot of his interviews, that he described them as two parents arguing about how to raise their children.
Exactly. And to a lot of audience goers, this is a very relatable thing, Pixar. We do see that journey of how, yes, the bad memories are unpleasant. It sucks that Riley got a penalty. It sucks that all of that stuff happened. Or, to a lesser extent, waved at a boy who was waving at a girl behind her.
We've all been there.
You gotta let that be a part of you. That's who you are. Because we see what happens when Anxiety lets all of the core memories that she makes become like the
sense of self.
We see, instead of it being like, yes, I'm ambitious, I'm going to win, the first thing that comes out of a fully anxiety-formed sense of self is, I'm not good enough. Like, this might not hit the same emotional beats as the first one, but the emotional beats it does hit on with its own stride are powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And because listen, when you're turned into a teenager and you now have to worry about how you come off and who you want to be friends with, and when you become an adult and you have to worry about a whole gaggle of other things, which is just going to be a nightmare for poor Riley. You gotta just not let that anxiety get the best of you. You gotta take a step back, calm down, and just think it through. My dad and my sister have a saying, take care of things that are 3 feet in front of you, not beyond it, not behind you, in front of you, and then see where you are.
A good expression.
You can see this throughout the whole movie as anxiety's actions, along with some of the other emotions, cause a much bigger rift within Riley. And I'm not just talking about the sarcasm, which is a great wordplay pun.
Yes.
And then what I like about this movie is that while it does retread through some emotional story beats, it never feels like it has to make too many callbacks to the original movie.
There's one, though, that killed me. When they brought back the Triple Dent Gum theme.
That one was great, though. That's funny because that's relatable, though. You get a stupid little jingle in your head, and then you jettison it, and you think it's gone, and then somehow it comes back. And then you'll be like, God darn it. Because I love when they go back to Imagination Land, and they don't redo anything there. We don't reference the imaginary friend from the original movie. We get new gags and new side characters. Like, I love Bluefy.
Yes.
Bluefy is the most unhinged combination of Dora the Explorer, Bob the Builder, and, of course, Bluey. And then, of course, we have the video game character Lance Slashblade, who actually doesn't actually slash anything, but I digress. And then, of course, the big, deep, dark secrets. Those were fun new gags. There was no returning gags from the original, like the fear of clowns and such. And Ron Funches as Bluefy is great. He's one of those actors you get who can do the slightly unhinged cartoon character for stuff like this.
Mm-hmm. I was just checking his IMDb to see how many things that he's been in that we've talked about. Quite a few from 2020 onward.
Of course, he was in like the original Trolls movie, and I think he was the one actor who returned for the TV series that they did.
Yep.
And then we get stuff like Steve Purcell, who is a cartoonist and animator, and who created Sam and Max, was Deep Dark Secret, by the way. Fun voice acting tip there. Frank Oz was one of the Mind Cops. We got Paula Pell as the anger inside Riley's mom. June Squibb, who's going to be in the upcoming Velma, played the nostalgic emotion. I love how they just keep shooing that thing off. It's like a joke of how we all love nostalgia right now, or we're at the tail end of it. But also the fact they're like, we gotta lock this thing away, man. We can't be riding on nostalgia. There's a lot of small voice performances.
Yeah, like of course, Flea's in this movie. Bobby Moynihan.
Bobby Moynihan. Sarayu Blue. John Ratzenberger actually shows up because I'm sure those animated films he's doing with that other company are doing quite wonderful. Like Paula Poundstone, Pete Docter plays Riley's dad's anger. And of course, we're like with the main cast with, unfortunately, I think only 3 of the original 5 Emotions cast members return, with Amy Poehler, Phyllis Smith, and Lewis Black. And I'm not going to say that Liza Lapira and Tony Hale do a bad job. I actually got quite used to their performances, and I actually think I prefer Liza over Mindy of the character. I'm a little sad that Bill Hader couldn't come back because Disney apparently wasn't willing to pay him enough.
Yeah.
But Tony Hale does a good job. But there's a difference between having a Tony Hale and having a Bill Hader.
I like both of them just fine. And I think there are specific lines that Tony Hale crushes, like when he says, "We are suppressed emotions."
Yeah, that's a good line. Now, with the new emotions, I like them. I like the ideas about them, like envy and embarrassment and ennui, but they aren't the most complex. Like the thing about the original five emotions, there was layers to being happy, sad, mad, afraid, and disgusted by things. I think the only ones that have a little bit more to them are anxiety, embarrassment, and ennui. Because ennui is more like the detached emotion, like how some teenagers are, that then lead into like sarcasm and stuff like that. Envy might be the weakest emotion because she's not really, well, like everyone says, envious.
She kind of has more of this like childlike wonder more than envy. Sometimes it gets there. She kind of feels like the little sister of the emotions.
Exactly. Which is a little disappointing because Io does a fantastic job with the role. Well, she's funny. She's a super talented actor. Put her in everything.
Yes.
But I was sad to see Envy not be a little more vicious about being envious. It's more subtle with it. And it unfortunately comes off more like they built the emotion around the performer than them working on how the emotion is fully fleshed out. And unfortunately, Paul Walter Hauser doesn't have many lines in the movie. I wish he did. I really loved him in Orion in the Dark, but I did like his performance as Embarrassment and how Embarrassment was just like a good person or a good emotion, but was shy and nervous.
I like the animation, like when he's first introduced, and he does like the kind of sort of high five with joy. And
yeah,
then
he's just like, ah. I won't say this was as miscast as big as, Sean Penn doing grunts in the first Angry Birds movie, but I wish he just had more spoken lines instead of just at the very end. As we journey through this story, like I said, I wish they could have done a few other things differently, and I wonder if this game pushed forward a year instead of back and game switched out with Elio kind of hurt this movie's production because it's like 99% there. It's great. It knocked it out of the park. That joy delusional sequence is so funny because it's such an unexpected thing to see Joy basically had enough of her comrade's nonsense.
yeah,
Like I love that whole sequence where she's just like, delusional, huh? Of course I am. And everyone's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We opened up a can of worms that I don't think we were ready to open.
do you think that scene happened a little bit too soon?
I think a little too soon. It could have gone a little further. Like, I think this movie could have been longer instead of being 96 minutes. Like, it's funny that a friend of ours said, I don't know why Ultraman Rising was 2 hours. And it's just like, because it was able to build upon and expand upon the themes and dynamics of the characters. 90 minutes in how US animated films are made is not always a lot of time.
You could have pushed this one up to minimum 100.
I'm going to say it should have been 2 hours. It feels like everything was in a rush because we don't get a lot of time of Riley with her friends or these new high school friends or the drama between how Riley's friends from before they went to this hockey camp are going to a different high school. It's stuff like that. There needed more moments for the film to cook more. And like there was this whole thing where fear was either slightly crushing on anxiety or just very admired her a lot. And that just kind of went nowhere.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy the fact that it wasn't just another joy and sadness adventure. It was joy with everyone. And then they sent sadness away. I love Phyllis Smith as Sadness. I think she has some of the funniest lines.
She does.
I love these like the worry of like I don't want to trip over or break anything or watch it all burn to the ground. Very fun. Like this movie is very funny. It just needed a little more fine tuning, I think. But for a directorial debut, and if I had a nickel for every time an animated film from the US showed a visual representation of how a panic attack feels or looks, I'd have 2 nickels. It might not be a lot, but the fact that it's happened twice in the span of 5 years is a lot.
And this one's actually really impactful too.
The storm of anxiety and how it mirrors on the inside and outside of Riley, where Riley looks like she's just having a heart attack and it's just about to break down, and how anxiety, even though she's technically moving all around in this big anxiety tornado, she's still like holding on to the control panel, just afraid to let go. It's very effective. And I know people are going to be like, well, technically, this is not how my panic attack works.
Nowhere near the point.
Like, it's a good discussion to have about how people and how different panic attacks form out of people. Like, some people might say, I would be more like ennui, where I would just kind of shut off and be zoned out, kind of looking, the 1,000-yard stare and such. But in general, a movie is never going to have enough time in the world to cover everything. So it's not really a good criticism of the panic attack, but I'm not going to say your panic attack is lesser because of that or anything like that. It's just, it should lead into a better discussion about how we show mental health, which is what Inside Out literally became, an advocate for kids to express themselves emotionally or for something a little deeper. And that's what is so good about this franchise. There's ways to build up on it that you can't really do with a franchise like Cars.
That's why I seriously think both of these movies should be shown regularly in school, especially if you're going into psychology. This is a good like sort of visual metaphor for kids and teenagers and even adults too are going through, because like one thing that this movie kind of makes clear is you're not done evolving as a person. Change is the one constant in your life.
Exactly. You're going to keep changing. The good and bad memories and those emotions that come with them are going to define you. And that's just how things are. You literally don't stop mentally growing until I think 21 or 25. There's plenty more to do with at least one more movie in this franchise. Like if they wanted to make another one where Riley is a young adult.
Aren't they doing an Inside Out spinoff too on Disney Plus?
Yes, they are, in fact. It's going to focus on I think the Imagination film studio that we saw in the first movie. I was a little shocked to hear that they are doing a spinoff because I swore I heard Pete Docter say that after Win or Lose, they weren't going to do more TV show or shorts for Disney Plus. I mean, Disney as a whole, with all of their animation right now, is in a weird spot this year. Inside Out 2 turned out to be really good. They still have the Lion King prequel and Moana 2 to deal with. We'll have to see how that goes. But with Inside Out 2, while I wish they ironed out the emotions more and we got to see a little more of like the friends in Riley's life, it's still a very smart, very heartfelt, very touching animated experience. It's the reason why people still love Pixar, why people still want them to be a big fish in the pond, despite the fact, as of right now, it's a big fish, but there are bigger fish in that pond. So animation's going to have to start evolving and adapting and doing something new and interesting instead of just trying to be a 4-quadrant movie. Because with stuff like Inside Out 2, while it does do a lot of amazing things, what if someone at like a higher up at Pixar or Disney just said, hey, you know that Ultraman Rising movie Netflix did? Let's do that. Let's tackle stuff like that. And lo and behold, Ultraman Rising by Shannon Tyndall is amazing. Like, I'm a huge Ultraman fan. I have been since the end of high school, and I love the franchise to pieces. I've watched a vast majority of most of the series, and I know mostly my way in and out of the franchise. So, of course, I was looking very much forward to Ultraman Rising and seeing Shannon Tyndall's take on the legendary franchise. Because for those who do not know about Ultraman, I'll give a quick summary. Essentially, you have a Science Patrol Earth Defense Force team. It usually has the stern, stoic captain, the brave fighter, the inventor slash comedic person, and I'm not saying this to be like a jerk, the girl character, because this was the 1960s. So,
Of course.
and you had the one guy who was like, yeah, I'm ready to help save the world, and then becomes Ultraman in question. Of course, as time has moved on, those tropes have evolved, where some shows would be more family friendly, some would have a darker edge to them. Some would include, like, in the lineup of the human characters, like, at the very least, two different female characters. And instead of the comedic inventor goofball character, it would be the kaiju expert, the giant monster guy, the one who would know all of the history of the monsters and where humanity has encountered them. And there were even times in series where Ultraman was actually not the main character. The Ultra Galaxy series was very much Pokemon, but with the monsters from Ultraman, which is a cooler concept than it kind of actually is. But with how many iconic giant monsters there are, it's still very cool. It was even a super special thing when the Ultra Galaxy series brought kaiju from the original Ultra Q series, which was basically X-Files with aliens and giant monsters. That happened right before the Ultraman series began, like, into the fray, where it's just like, wow, we haven't seen these monsters in 50 years. That's cool. With Ultraman as a hero, he was basically, what if we took one Power Ranger and turned him giant? No Megazords, none of that stuff. Later iterations, or like more modern iterations of Ultraman, would have some kind of weapon. The artillery of Ultraman was mostly like light-based weapons. It would have like the saw blades, spacium beams. It would make shields and barriers using light energy and such. It was like Green Lantern, but without the creativity of the ring powers. And sometimes Ultraman would fight human-sized monsters or aliens, and sometimes they would fight giant monsters. Ultra 7 was very much human-sized Ultraman, who could also still be giant and such. So with this movie, it takes the franchise into a more substantial direction. Not that Ultraman has never been a substantial franchise, but most of the time it was human teams fight kaiju. One of them becomes Ultraman and fights a giant monster. Sometimes the humans kill the giant monsters and help out Ultraman in that regards. Like, until maybe like some of the more recent series, like there was lore and world building, but it was never a focus. Everything was, in general, pretty disconnected from one another. There would maybe be like one or two times throughout each new Ultraman where a previous Ultraman would appear, until recently where it's just like, we got all the Ultramans now, man. We even got the weird Australian and US made Ultramans in here also. And the fun fact about this movie was that it was originally not meant to be an Ultraman like movie, but it was an original project that Shannon Tyndall was working on when he was a part of the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends production. And then when he came to Netflix, I assume pitched them the idea, and Netflix was like, hey, we got this cool idea for you. What if you take this idea and make it into an Ultraman movie? Because we just got the Ultraman license for that CGI Ultraman series. And I'm sure if we wanted to talk to or interview Shannon Tyndall, we could and ask him about that. The exact process of how this movie became what it is.
I am very curious to see what exactly went into the making of this.
Because a lot of the times, Ultraman movies were never very deep movies. Like, I'm sure they had some layered attempt of having something more. But most of the time, it was just, we're going to fight some movie exclusive aliens and monsters. And maybe we'll team up with the previous Ultraman. Like, Ultraman Dyna would team up with Ultraman Tiga, and then Ultraman Gaia would team up with Ultraman Tiga and Dyna. And you get the idea. And not that, like, none of these Ultraman series ever did anything with their premise. Like, Ultraman Geed is interesting in the fact that our main Ultraman is the son of a villainous Ultraman. Or Ultraman Cosmos was one of the first, maybe the first Ultraman to use more passive abilities to stop the giant monsters coming to Earth and destroying it and such. It was like the first time where an Ultraman using Force was a last resort. So there was definitely room to do stuff like this. I think making it a story about fatherhood, dealing with loss, grief, and the disconnect and reconnecting of those bonds with our family is an extremely ideal story for Ultraman, because there is the father of Ultra in the franchise. There is a dad. And some of them are like the sons or the offspring of a previous Ultraman. So it makes sense. Man, Shannon Tyndall and his team just knows what they're doing with these stories about family and the connections that families make.
He really knocked it out of the park with this. Kind of funny how we're talking about two really strong directorial debuts in this episode. I'm just so proud of Shannon for this movie to just exist and to be as stunning and amazing as it turned out to be.
So basically the plot of this Ultraman movie called Ultraman Rising is our main character, Kenji Sato, voiced by Christopher Sean, as a kid, lost his mom in a giant monster attack that his dad, who turned out to be Ultraman at the time, something happened to the mom. You're not entirely sure what happened. You assume she died in the attack, and we'll talk about that when we get to that. So modern day Kenji is a baseball player. He's very cocky. He thinks he's the hottest news since sliced bread. After an encounter with a monster, he finds his egg. And, well, the egg hatches, the baby kaiju imprints on him, and it turns into basically a coming-of-age story for Kenji to become a dad and to reconnect with his dad, who he has grown extremely distant to since that attack happened. I mean, let's talk about the animation first, because when we talk about stylized CGI,
this is exactly what we're talking about.
Exactly. It doesn't copy or imitate the Spider-Verse stuff, though there are moments where it has those cool 2D touches, and the angular, slim designs of everyone is a wonderful touch to the overall visual presentation. It gives it a flair that most animated films are not going to have or have time to implement well. Like, I still enjoyed Thelma the Unicorn, and I enjoy, in general, most CGI features and their visuals. But after a while, you want to see a different design to the humans. And here they have these cool, angular, blocky designs to them. And there's like this cool, heavy amount of shading and like very comic book looking elements to it. I mean, I know I just said it's not riffing off of the Spider-Verse visuals, but it's taking that idea and using it for its own visual presentation.
I think part of the reason why the character designs look as unique as they do is because Shannon Tyndall not only co-wrote and directed this, he also was designing these characters as well. This has a lot of his fingerprints all over this movie.
Those are some very big fingerprints. A lot of the first part of the movie is Kenji like not being a jerk and learning how to take care of a child and reconnecting on a human level with the people around him. Like that one reporter and her daughter. It's like a parallel to him with the baby kaiju. And then, of course, it connects to his father of when he was raising Kenji. And, of course, our villain, Dr. Onda, and how he uses the pain of loss to fuel his hatred for the kaiju. I mean, there are definitely like good and bad sides, but the good and bad sides, you understand and why they are implementing these actions and such.
Even though Dr. Onda is clearly doing villainous things, it's mostly towards our main protagonists, but they give you plenty of time to understand why he's doing what he's doing, because everyone processes grief differently. Sometimes it changes us for the better, other times it changes us for the worse.
I mean, that's the thing. Kenji is disconnected from his father because of the incident from back then, but he uses love and compassion and his attachment with this baby kaiju, and from what he learns from Mina, to become a better person and to reconnect with his father, just because of finding out how, hey, kids are just like us. We're emotional, unhinged little monsters who are just trying to find our place in the world and trying to understand everything around us. When you just have patience and love, you can then help them grow.
By the way, can we talk about how just adorable Emmy is?
This baby kaiju is adorable, and I remember Shannon posting pictures of his child as the inspiration for the animation for Emmy. And Emmy is very much the personification of a child, of a newborn, a baby. It's very relatable because I'm sure as a parent, you have seen your kid do half of this stuff. Like be disgusted with and picky with food and such, or be upset. And then, of course, get really addicted to a super obnoxious show that is meant to distract your kid instead of teach them something. I think that TV show the baby kaiju gets obsessed with is an actual show. Like, it's an actual like spin-off of the Ultraman franchise, but it's very much meant for very little kids.
If that's true, that's a really great deep cut.
Oh, there's a lot of small Easter eggs. There's a monster from Ultra Q on the sign of one of the buildings. And if you look closely, it's this one monster with a clam head. It's a super iconic monster. And then, of course, the two kaiju that you see at the beginning of the movie, Noronga and Bemular, are from the very first Ultraman series. Bemular was canonically the very first kaiju Ultraman fought.
Oh.
And Noronga was the second kaiju. The second episode had Ultraman fight the first alien villain of the series, Bolton, which you can actually see a lot of Easter eggs from Ultraman in the background. You'll see Gamora, the giant dinosaur. You'll see Bolton. You'll see a lot of the monsters from the very first Ultraman series in the background. I think you even see a Power Rangers Megazord from Dino Force.
Okay, that's cool.
It's like there are all these little touches. I wish those touches went a little further. Like I wanted to see maybe a few more monsters from the first Ultraman in the movie instead of just having Noronga be the monster of choice. Even though I love Noronga, I have an action figure of him on my parents' fridge. Like I wanted to see Red King and some other iconic first gen monsters in Aliens, but I'm sure we're going to see those in the sequel. Like I'm sure we're going to see Zaton and Mephiles Sajin and Bolton in the next movie because they sequel tease at the end, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But like I wish the giant robot at the end was a little more interesting because Ultraman has giant robot enemies. King Joe from Ultra 7 is probably the most iconic giant robot of the Ultraman franchise. But I understand they probably wanted to keep it to just Ultraman. So, no Ultra 7 or beyond stuff. Even though monsters from Ultraman Season 1 carry over into other multiple seasons. So
I'm sure that we're going to get a sequel because I don't know exactly what Netflix's numbers are, but everyone I've talked to who has seen this movie either at the very least enjoyed it or like absolutely loves it.
I'm very happy Ultraman is doing well because Ultraman was one of those Japanese franchises that never quite picked up. They tried very hard to make Ultraman a thing because, Power Rangers was big, but it never quite made it up there. And it didn't quite help that we had some mediocre series like Ultraman Powered, which was the first US based Ultraman. And I think 4Kids at one point was trying to bring over Ultraman Tiga,
Oh,
but it never worked out. Like, I think it got some episodes made and then it got canceled. It's like Kamen Rider. A lot of attempts, but it never quite worked.
what about that anime that Production IG did in like 2019?
Yeah, Ultraman, the one where instead of giant aliens, it's like armored suits. Yeah, that one's popular, but it's also a very different kind of Ultraman series.
Is it like geared more towards an older audience?
Yes. And speaking of older audiences, it's funny how condescending a lot of reviews are for this movie.
Oh, yeah,
How
I've seen a couple.
it's really insulting. Like this movie is dealing with a lot of the stuff that Pixar does from time to time. It deals with death. It deals with like complicated family relations. It's very mature despite having some childish moments like the poop and the vomit jokes. But it's a movie with a real mature pair of shoulders that you see. And it is a complex movie. Just because it has a pseudo family audience doesn't mean it's not adult. Just because it doesn't have cursing and gratuitous amounts of sex and violence or shock jock edgy humor doesn't mean it's not adult, man. Like a lot of this movie is how these characters deal with loss and how dealing with loss with anger will result in destructive consequences, where dealing with loss with love and support can make people better.
I like how this movie it's more character focused than just being like a action beat 'em up with monsters. Although, don't get me wrong, that still would have been fun if it looked as amazing as this movie does. But because it has that extra layer is how this went from really good to incredible.
Exactly. Like, yes, I would love to have had more monster fights, but the goal of this movie was its story. And like I said, if you wanted to watch a Ultraman movie where they were barely their plots and just to fight monsters, you can do that. You have almost 60 years of Ultraman to go through where it's nothing but Ultraman fighting monsters. This one wanted to tell a story, or it wanted to tell a story that wasn't hindered by like a TV production. Because as much as I love TV productions, there's definitely like you gotta stretch this story out because we got 46 episodes to fill out until you get the new one and such. If you want an Ultraman with a story, this is not only probably the best example and probably the best Ultraman movie to watch, it's also a really good beginner piece like to get into the franchise. Because as goofy as like I saw some comments saying like Ultraman would never try to raise a monster or take care of a monster. Ultraman has done a lot of passive, non harmful solutions and things to monsters of the weeks. Like in the original Ultraman show, there are a few episodes, like one monster was a skeleton monster that just wanted to rest and go away to like get back into space to where it belonged, or took this monster that was made by children and put it on a planet to where it would do no harm. This is in line, perfectly normal for Ultraman. So I don't know why people are saying this isn't very Ultraman. It's like, then you haven't watched a lot of the franchise, or your extremely narrow idea of Ultraman is just campy acting and people in rubber suits. Sorry, it's just some of those reviews really bugged me because you don't hear this kind of thing for animation or like live action stuff for adults. You don't hear this kind of insult. Like, you never hear anyone personally insulted by a show aimed at adults.
Yeah, no. But because Ultraman is for children, that suddenly gives you the right to talk down to your readers.
Like, what if, like, one year we just got a bunch of mediocre biopic dramas? Like, no tentpole releases, just mediocre, schlubby biopic that always come up around award season. And they're all terrible. What if, like, how would these critics, and I say this as a critic, and people will react to say like, hey, this is what adults deserve, because just like in Inside Out 2, you just grow up feeling a lot less joy in the world. Like, what if someone just said, yeah, that mediocre adult animated series was bad and it was aimed at adults, so that's how the creatives of Hollywood see you. They think you deserve dumbed down edgelord slop. That's how we got like 5 seasons of Paradise PD and 3 seasons of Brickleberry, y'all. Because that's what they think of adult audiences. It's not Blue Eye Samurai or Scavenger's Reign. It's stuff like that barely lasts a season, or if it does, it is continuously hated upon. So we just need to evolve beyond the fact that, yes, this might be aimed at families, but just because it is aimed at families doesn't mean it deserves to be looked down upon, unless it's like super specifically made for kids. But even then, you still want kids to have good stuff.
Exactly.
Like, that's why there are people out there who get really upset if you like say like Power Rangers is just for kids. And it's just like, yes, Power Rangers is just for kids, but it doesn't mean that the writing has to be subpar. It just means that the people working on this need to be given the wiggle room to craft a story. It's just like, let the creatives cook. Like, there definitely needs to be a balance between studios and creatives, but the studios need to stop worrying about 4-quadrant stuff. Just let the creatives make the story they want to make.
As long as the thing they're making is good and people like it and people tell other people about it, it's going to make more, well, in the case of Netflix, it's going to make more noise as far as more people are watching it. Maybe you get some new subscribers, but anyway, the point is it would be better to let creatives cook because they can attract quality will attract more audiences. But also
out there.
Netflix, you could do a better job of marketing.
Oh, exactly. And put this thing in theaters. Put your movies in theaters, god darn it. Because this would have looked great on a big screen. I can't imagine what it was like for folks who were able to see it on a big screen.
Oh, I'm very jealous of people
Like
who got to see it on the big screen.
the action is wonderful in this movie. It feels big and it's not like too constrained or up close like the bad Pacific Rim sequel where or like most bad action movies where they're hiding the fact that the action is not well done. Here, you feel the weight and grand scale of Ultraman fighting monsters, and like it's so fun. It's thrilling. It's the animation is just wonderful. The voice cast is great with Christopher Sean, Ged Watanabe, Tamlin Tomita, Keon Young, Julia Harriman, Karen Muruyama, Lee Shorten, Art Butler, Francois Chow, Robert Yasumura, Milo O'Malley, Brittany Ishibashi, Veronica Lapke, and Jonathan Groff.
Who just won a Tony last night. Congratulations to him.
Exactly. And, shout out to the fact that Shannon Tyndall was able to put in a Lost Ollie reference.
It's not even like a blink and you miss it cameo. Bunny is legitimately one of Kenji's old toys.
Yeah, it's really charming to see his first directorial creative effort or major creative effort with Lost Ollie show up a lot here because, yeah, that was a good miniseries and what have you. And the story of Ultraman Rising is just so good. You believe that bond between Kenji and his dad. And Gede Watanabe is so good in the role as the father. And this is the same guy who was Ling in Mulan.
That's right.
He's so good. I love the performances from all of these actors. And that last moment when Ultraman finally does what a dad would do and sacrifice himself to protect his loved ones. Like, it's so good. And I love the fact that the dad becomes an Ultraman also. Like he returns as his iteration of Ultraman. Like, that whole ending is just so good with the monsters teaming up to fight the giant robot bad guy and such. I love this movie. It's number 4 on my 2024 rankings of animated films, but those first 4 are like all tied for first place.
This is my number 1 for the year, but kind of like what you said, the order of like my top 5 animated films of the year are basically irrelevant.
It's a really good movie. It perfectly encapsulates the appeal and charm of Ultraman. And even if this was just an original movie, it would still knock it out of the park because it's just the groundwork there is so good. And it's one of those IP based movies that actually has a substantial connection to its IP because Ultraman does have those melodramatic soap opera moments of the connections and bonds that they all have with one another. Obviously, very much watch this movie. Watch both Inside Out and Ultraman. They make for a very good double feature. And
yeah,
just go watch these 2 movies. They are just fantastic. It just shows you how great animation as a medium is, as a creative form of entertainment. I think people will love Ultraman Rising. And if they're curious about getting into the franchise, use this movie.
Yeah. Speaking as someone who is a little bit more green to the franchise, this is a near perfect entry point. You get sort of the basics of who Ultraman is, what he's mostly known for, and then you get to meet a whole bunch of cool new characters.
That'll be it for this episode. I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do for the next one, but, stay tuned.
Until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You could find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world. called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camsideview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and that place at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You can escape, so do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.